Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Help Us Here podcast, brought to you by the Beyond Compulsion Academy. For so many years, I would be in this cycle of relapsing and then feeling really ready to go, motivated. All right, let's do it now. I'm never ever going to go back to porn ever again. I cannot possibly feel this bad, this tired, anxious, frustrated, alone, disconnected, and have all this feeling of self-disgust. So I'm like, right, never watching porn ever again, never ever want to watch porn, okay? And what would happen is, to be honest, I'd go on a bit of a streak, maybe a few days, maybe a few weeks, maybe a few months, but then I'd completely forget about that relapse and I would go back to porn and I'd have another relapse and I'd be like, what on earth has happened here? Like, I told myself I wouldn't do this again. And I was in this cycle, just going round and round in circles for years, literally hundreds of relapses, stuck in this motivation trap. And what we need to do is get out of this motivation cycle because it's not helping us at all. So what we need to do is start off by understanding the thought processes which are leading to this motivation. So the thought processes are things like, I never want to watch porn again. I can't ever look at porn ever again. I'm never going to do this again, just things like that. And it's all thinking into the future. It's so far away from the present moment. And it completely denies the reality of an addiction, because when you have this emotional, psychological dependency on a mind's mood-altering experience, you literally have addicted neural pathways because you've engaged watching porn in the past. Because of that, you are going to want to watch porn again in the future. So if we're constantly saying to ourselves, nope, never want to watch that ever again, or we're saying like we can't watch that ever again, even though that's not true either, we're going to feel pretty terrible at some point in the future when suddenly, out of nowhere, we've got these urges. And now we're like, wait, what? I want to watch porn again, but, I said to myself I was never going to want to watch porn ever again. Like, what's going on here, right? So what we need to do is just completely get away from that motivation stance, because it's just this temporary thing which gets us all psyched up very temporarily. But in the long term, it's actually going to be very detrimental because we're denying the reality of addiction. What we need to know is the truth. The truth will set us free. And the truth is, it's not your fault that you've ended up getting stuck in an addiction. We're all susceptible to this. And in a way, it surprises me that more people aren't addicted to this. I think millions and millions are, but most people aren't addicted only because they've not tried to stop yet. So when we try to stop, we realize like, whoa, this is like a serious problem. Like, this is this porn addiction epidemic going on right now. So it's not your fault that you got involved in this. Not my fault I got involved in this. But what we need to do is start to reframe the way we think so we can actually get out of it properly. And this motivation cycle is not serving you. Otherwise, all those YouTube videos you've watched on maybe NoFap or porn addiction, all those episodes you've listened to, all those feelings of, yeah, this is the last time, never ever going to do this again. If this stuff works, you wouldn't be here watching this, right? So let's start to reframe things. Okay, the truth is, in the future, I am going to want to watch porn. And I want to pull up a couple of stories just from my memory here. So the first one is the one we don't want to be like the way in which we don't want to think. So I remember just talking to this woman once at Samaritans. It's like a volunteering charity that I do. And this woman was like so depressed. And, I was asking all these questions, had a lot of compassion. I felt really bad for her. She was going through a really tough time. But the more I delved into what was going on for her, the more I realized that her main problem was the way that she thought about things. She really didn't feel like she could do anything which was uncomfortable. And so she wasn't brushing her teeth, she wasn't cooking, she was literally just staying in bed like every day, just on her phone and watching Netflix and watching films. And she felt absolutely terrible, but her thought process was, I just don't feel like doing that about all these different activities. And what we need to realize is that, okay, yeah, we don't feel like doing that right now, and like these feelings are just temporary. So if we're relying on motivation to help us overcome a porn addiction, then when we actually have the discomfort of an urge, which is inevitable, that is going to happen, well, if we believe that these like temporary feelings are so powerful, then we're probably going to listen to that discomfort and go, right, I can't handle that either. I need to get out of that discomfort because we've placed a high value on temporary feelings. So then we're going to escape that temporary discomfort, go back to the porn, and actually it's the porn and this addiction which is causing all that discomfort in the first place. Like, that's what's going on here, and that's how this cycle just goes round and round and round. So an alternative story I want to share is just my journey of running. So I'm not that much of a runner, but I do a few races here and there, just with friends. It's more of a social thing. But due to listening to David Goggins, who's like the most extreme guy that I know in the self-improvement world, he talks a lot about like race days and kind of approaching them in the right way with a certain mental stance. And I have to admit, as much as I disagree with David Goggins on a lot of topics, when it comes to having a certain mental stance for competition, I quite like some of the stuff he talks about. So for every run I've done, I've always prepared myself mentally of like, I'm going into this and it is going to be brutal. I literally say to myself, I'm probably going to get injured. I'm going to be in so much pain. This is going to be horrible, but I'm going to do it anyway. And so because I approach every race with this mentality of, this is not going to feel good, I am definitely going to want to stop running. But even if I'm injured, even if I'm feeling so uncomfortable or whatever, I'm just going to keep going. Because of that, every race I've done, 1, I've had a personal best. 2, I've massively surpassed the time I expected to get in these races. Like, ran way faster than I've ever ran before. Just because for races, different mentality for me. I run like just totally different, and yeah, it's uncomfortable, doesn't feel good, but that mentality going into it is what's got me good times in those races, and not particularly fast, by the way. As I say, I'm not like some real proper athlete or anything like that, but just that mentality side of things has helped so much. And I think when it comes to overcoming a pornography addiction, we want to go into it with a similar mentality of, this is going to be difficult. What lies ahead is going to be uncomfortable because I have these addicted neural pathways right now. Doesn't mean there's anything wrong with me. If I have this wanting, if I have this desire, doesn't mean there's anything wrong with me. This is just addiction, and I can overcome it. I can go through that discomfort and get to the other side. But the key thing is, it's the process, it's the strategy, it's the system that you use that's going to get you to the other side. Motivation is like so irrelevant to moment by moment dealing with discomfort. It's like almost like the opposite of that, because motivation feels good and exciting and it's about the future, whereas the actual changes in the neural pathways are made in the present moment when you're experiencing the urges, when you've got that discomfort, you think it through correctly, you do that repeatedly, and what happens is the neural pathways change, and they do change for good as well. So let's get away from motivation and instead let's embrace temporary discomfort instead, and that's going to get us to a place of permanent mental freedom where we can have peace of mind, more confidence, more energy, more excited for life, and actually just get our life back from this horrible, horrible, painful porn hell cycle. Thank you so much for watching or listening to this episode of the Help Is Here podcast. You can go and take a compulsion test, link in the description if you want to find out if you are addicted to porn. Thanks again, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.